Grace and mercy and peace and contentment be to you from God our Father and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who is indeed, as we just sang, our wealth. The words for our meditation this morning, as we mentioned, are from our Old Testament lesson from Ecclesiastes, chapters 1 and chapters 2, summarized in these verses from Ecclesiastes chapter 2. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done, and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. This is God's word. Fellow stewards of our possessions, our, essentially being God's, that we are to use on His behalf. Whenever we have to deal with those questions regarding possessions, regarding wealth, there's always that situation that it's a little ticklish, isn't it? And it's ticklish because we live in a society, in general, where we have things and possessions that people of Jesus' day wouldn't even begun to imagine what those things were. Our lifestyles are better, far better, than not too long, even distant past in our own country. So how do we as Christians deal with wealth? If we've been Christians for a long time, we've heard about these things for many, many years. But it's always a challenge. It is always a challenge, and it goes back to really what we've been talking about, mentioning in the summer months, is that METS, my everything toward salvation. METS, and we'll continue to emphasize these over the coming weeks in the summer and into the fall. And those four bases, thinking of METS, those ETSs that go with my everything towards salvation, not to earn it, but because I have it. I live with an idea that my Lord is everything. He is my wealth, emphasizing that today. And so everything I do is with the idea that I have salvation in Jesus Christ. And you can go through all those ETSs, engage the Scripture. That could apply to just as well as today to what we're speaking about. I have to be in the Word. Equipped to serve. And that's what we're going to emphasize today. How do I use my wealth? How does that equip me to serve others? And then also looking at those ETS ones and being able to say that I want to encourage the saints. Use my wealth also to encourage the saints and see what they need, what things that we can do to uplift other people in our own lives. And then that last ETS, which was to evangelize the straying, to go out. And even we do evangelism work, we could emphasize that by how we use our possessions. That's a question you could ask each other, isn't it? When a person looks at me or sees me in my life, does he think more about my car than he does about my Christian faith? Nothing wrong with having a nice car. But what do people know me for? What do people see with the way that I use my and have my wealth? And this morning, as we emphasize and look at what Solomon learned in his situation, and are able to say, Lord, help me not to live a meaningless life. Let life be meaningful. Live a meaningful life, rich towards God. That's what we want to do. I think we can be fairly blunt, isn't it? Can't we be? If we look at our society, boy, it is going in opposite directions. And it's not to emphasize this week after week where we come in and say, look, we all know that. We know that people in our society are becoming more and more secular. God is out of people's lives. We know in America that many people have different faiths and they don't believe in Jesus and need Jesus Christ. We've got an element in that segment that still need that hold to a God, but it isn't the true God. Sexual immorality is rampant in our country. We know that. The breaking of the sixth commandment. The whole jokes are made of that. The idea of one man, one woman living in a relationship, in marriage, is belittled. It really is. But that other thing that's there, I think right at the top, isn't it? It's an accumulation of wealth, of possessions, of having those things and things in our lives that can really take us away from God, and that becomes an idol, the first commandment. No other gods, we make those possessions what's most important to us. And what's really sneaky, and I think it's sneaky, is that it's even happening within churches too. What's the big thing that we're to do as Christians? What makes the essence of Christianity, what makes the essence of a Christian? It's how they use their wealth. Go out and use the good things that you have and help other people. Jesus Christ was a good example of that, but forget him as Savior. And isn't that, how many people, and you hear it all the time, I know there's different things going on now, fundraisers, and different, good things in and of themselves. But what do people do? I want to live a certain lifestyle, and yet what makes me feel comfortable as an American, and maybe even someone who calls themselves a Christian or godly, is that I will make sure that I use part of my wealth for the benefit of someone else, or I'll have a cause. I'll have a cause. This is what I'm doing on behalf of other people without, by and large, without someone changing their lifestyle. This is what I've got. Here's how I want to live, but I'll make sure I can live with my own conscience that I will give to somebody else, and I will help them. Whether it's cancer, another disease, or whatever. And those things are fine, as we said. But then what happens is that's the motivation. The motivation isn't first and foremost helping people. That's not it. It's being able to establish my own lifestyle and then feel comfortable in my own skin. Without Jesus Christ. I don't need him as my Savior. But then it becomes ticklish for us as Christians. We would say, yeah, that's not me, that's not me. But then we've got to be careful as well that we don't fall into what happened to Solomon. What an unbelievable situation he had. How far, the kids in DBS will learn a little this week. You remember the story of what Solomon, when he came into rule after his father David had died, young man, the Lord comes to him, whatever you want, Solomon, I'll give to you. And what does he ask for? Not all the junk that he runs after later on in his life, but he asks for discernment. God, help me to lead this people. Let me know what's right from wrong. Let me have that wisdom to discern right from wrong. And what does he do? He messes everything up in his life. It's disgusting, really, what he did. That's starting with a believer. So for any of us to think that it could not happen to us, or we could slowly slip into a pattern of, boy, I think I'm a believer, and I do these little things, boom, 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 nip away, and before we know it, we're chasing after wealth. And what comes for us? Life is the abundance of possessions. But for Solomon, it was everything. Now, the book of Ecclesiastes, probably written by Solomon, the son of David, is what we most likely think is something that Solomon wrote at the end of his life. He's emphasizing what he learned. And Lord willing, we will see him in heaven. It's not 100% certain, though. He's writing what he saw and what he experienced. And what is unbelievable is that he took the approach that he'd be a good American, a good Renaissance American kind of modern kind of guy, dabbles with everything. Did you notice in some of the readings, he never lost his wisdom. He never became an alcoholic. He never became somebody filled with or in debauchery where he was just totally emotionally spent and that he was emotionally gone, that he couldn't take care of himself, that he became a ward of the society. He didn't do that. And yet he tried to experience everything. And he did it. You remember all the things that he went through? The money that he had? The harems that he had? What, 700 wives, 300 concubines? He had all kinds of building projects, great architect, great, wonderful environmental things, planting trees. All kinds of entertainment. All kinds of real estate. Everything. And what was his conclusion? You heard it. Meaningless. The old King James, vanity. It's meaningless. The word meaningless, emphasized with the word, The Hebrew word meaningless is the idea of breath, vapor, something that doesn't last, something that becomes insignificant, something that has no substance. Meaningless. Without God, living life in this world without God, and of course that's in its broader picture, God leading us to Jesus Christ and salvation. Everything that we do without Jesus Christ is absolutely meaningless. It has no value. Why? Because it's all gone. It's all gone in a short time, and it accomplishes nothing for us. It doesn't enhance our relationship with God. It doesn't advance anything to help our neighbor in the slightest way. What good does it do to help somebody physically if the spiritual things aren't there? What would happen if we had a cure for cancer tomorrow? That would be fantastic. But it doesn't matter. We're all going to die anyways. If we don't have God, don't have Jesus Christ, who God sent as our greatest possession, what does it mean? Can you be a Christian and environmentalist? Yes, you certainly can. But don't make the earth your greatest possession. Yes, we can differ on what if there's climate change or not. There are scientists on both sides. We have to discern. We could have spent a lot of time in that. You could be one of the ones that comes up to finally say, yes, there is climate change, it is man-made, and here are some things that we can do for it. But if that's all there is, the earth is good. That's not going to change. God's going to come and ultimately destroy the earth by fire. So what does it matter? It's meaningless if we don't have Jesus Christ. And that's what Solomon finally came after his life went into this tank. It went into the spiritual tank. Here's what he finally, when he wrote from of our Old Testament lesson, he said, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. Literally what my eyes asked for. You can almost see what he's talking to his eyes. Ooh, if I see something. And remember in the Hebrew and in the Greek as well, when you see heart, sometimes it's hard to tell when it's translated in English, but in the Hebrew, the word heart is there. It's not just emotional. It's really everything. It includes mind, it includes our personality, includes everything. So sometimes it's translated a little bit differently, but he's looking at everything I could come through, everything my eyes asked for, everything my mind could engage me. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to look at this for pleasure. I'm not going to deny myself anything. I refused my heart no pleasure. Boy, how many people wouldn't like to do that? My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Let's not get into a situation where we think that people who aren't believers, that they can't have a decent life as far as enjoying it. They certainly can. They can enjoy the labors that they have, the toil, the work that they have, all their plans coming to fruition, all their career goals met. They like what they accomplish. They may even enjoy helping people in their work and what they're able to do for them. But that's their reward. That's it. That's absolutely it. And that's what Solomon is desperately trying to warn. I wonder if God had him write just the whole book, meaningless, 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 without God. And he writes about for God, what are we to do as believers? He would lately write is to follow, is to live, enjoy the world that God has given us to the extent that we can, but make sure that we're following what God's will is. Follow what he tells us to do. That's what he is able to summarize. I denied myself nothing. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was, boom, meaningless. Meaningless. Vaporized. Breath, away. No substance. Everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. Now, you want to know what's really interesting as well? That part that we read in James, who's James writing to? Now listen, you rich people. Weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you. Your wealth has rotted, and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. Who's he talking to? We're not 100% sure if you look at the context. He could be talking to other Christians in the congregation. It could be society, that the Christians were there being abused by those who were the owners and were being abused, and he writes to be patient, hang on. But it could also have been within the group, the congregations that James was writing to. You know, you've got Christians, you're saying you're Christians, and look how you're abusing people who work for you. If you think you are wealthy, if you have the wealth and it belongs to you, and it's your wealth, and then you abuse other people with it, and you don't have God, and you're not pursuing a richness towards God, then it's all meaningless, and you'll get yours. You will find the judgment that says, don't think that you're a Christian. Now this is taking to the other extreme, because we would say, oh, that's not me. That's not me. I don't do that. It's not. I don't abuse other people with the things that God has given me. Don't those words of Jesus haunt us though? When he said from our gospel, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in abundance of possessions. We can have every plan that we want. Here's how my life is going to go. I'm going to retire at this age. I'm going to do this. I'm going to travel this. I'm going to do this when I retire. And suddenly, we know it's true from Scripture. There are Christians who this is going to fall. They're going to fall into this trap and thinking they're Christians when their heart has been given to wealth. The Bible is full of those examples. Who are possessions and wealth where people are taken away and they stumble and fall away from the faith because they're chasing after these things. Look what Jesus is saying. Life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. I hope we can truly say, each one of us, and that's where, boy, it takes diligence and practice to go home and tell each other this, that, hey, if we were to lose everything tomorrow, I would be just as happy as I am.